Alright, I want to talk about another perfect album, and in this case, it is the album Screaming for Vengeance, which was released in 1982 by Judas Priest, and it's a big turning point for the band in that this album marks their breakthrough into the American market in a really, really big way. British Steel, a masterpiece in its own right, had already given the band a pretty big following, but Screaming for Vengeance was their commercial breakthrough. It wasn't the direct follow-up to British Steel. There was an album in between called Point of Entry, which I won't get into much here. It's almost a failed attempt to get the commercial sound that they managed to grab here on Screaming for Vengeance. Now, Screaming for Vengeance is so well known that there's not much point in me going through it track by track. So I'm just going to talk about three elements that I think make it one of Judas Priest's greatest albums and help to designate it as a perfect album. First aspect that I think is remarkable about the album is the songwriting. So if you go track by track, which you should do, you should go listen to the whole thing, you'll see that every single song on the album is not only strong from like a riff point of view and a hook point of view and a structure point of view, but in the overall vision of the song. So take, for example, a song like Riding on the Wind. That is a song all about freedom and individuality, and the tempo of the song, the riff, the lyric, the melody, and the production are all just 100% behind that basic feeling. The same for something more ballady like Fever. And the arrangement, the production, the lyric, the melody, and the general structure of the song are all on the same page to promote that emotional feeling. In the past, on something like British Steel, there are various shades of almost the same feeling. So the overall style and feeling of the album itself, British Steel, is anthem. So you've got variations on that for the most part, anthem after anthem after anthem, about heavy metal, about the band, about individuality, freedom, and anti-authority type themes. And it's a brilliant album, but there was no need to explore various shades as deeply as what happens here on Screaming for Vengeance, which brings me to my second point, which is the lyrical content of the album. Not too many people talk about the lyrical content of this album, but it's really important because Rob Halford has gone off into a lot of different directions here. You've got political statements like Electric Eye. You've got deeply personal statements like Pain and Pleasure. You've got rebellious statements like Riding on the Wind and Screaming for Vengeance. But you've also got basic pop love themes like You've Got Another Thing Coming and Devil's Child. So by weaving in various textures over the course of the same album and almost touching on all of them within each song, it almost has a concept album feeling, although it's not a concept album. And this brings me to my third and final point about the brilliance and perfection of the album, which is the change in the way that the band itself was presented sonically. If you go back and listen to previous Judas Priest albums, the rhythm section was a lot busier, and particularly the drums were a lot more intricate and complex. And on this album, what they've done is they streamline the bass and drums a bit. They bring the guitars up to the forefront without sacrificing their intricacy or complexity. And then they also, of course, put the vocals right over the top of the whole mix because, as usual, Rob Halford's vocals are a selling point for the band. Finally, closely connected to this point is the fact that what the band has done on this album is actually become more heavy and more aggressive, faster, more immersed in heavy metal and power metal, and touching on, in songs like Screaming for Vengeance, they're touching on thrash texture. So after the disappointing performance of Point of Entry, that what you might look at as the first failed attempt to gain a commercial sound, rather than back off and dial it down, what they decided to do is push everything forward to not Spinal Tap 11, but 11, and just kick it up. And they made their most commercial album, very successful album, they even charted with it, by increasing their commitment to their heavy metal sound. And for that, I think, is another reason why the album is so special. I'm going to close out here by just touching on the production work on the album. The producer of the album is Tom Allum, and he deserves a video of his own, which I'll get around to making at some point. But just to mention a couple little things about what he did here on this album, he has found the perfect balance between the melodic side of Judas Priest, which is primarily concentrated in the dual guitar work and the vocal lines, and the heaviness, the guts of it. And like I said, one of the things that he did was he was able to find a new style and sonic signature for the rhythm section. Again, I think that's going to deserve its own video. Part of that is because of Dave Holland's drumming. Dave Holland is the first Judas Priest drummer in the catalog that really sits in a groove, that sits there and plays what's known as the money groove. More of a Phil Rudd approach to drumming than what they had previously. So again, this is topics for a future video. But in my opinion, Screaming for Vengeance is a perfect album. Every song on it is a killer song. The arrangements are perfect. I think it's mixed really well. I think the production's really good. I think the band identity is solid. I think the lyrics are really inspired. So yeah, this is a master. And if you're not a big fan of the album, you should give it another listen. If you are a big fan of the album, you should give it another listen. And if you have any thoughts on this or any other topic related to classic or contemporary music, please leave your thoughts in the section below, and remember to like and subscribe. Thanks a lot.